All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. There's a lot that we need to accomplish today, so bear with me as I go over some things about tomorrow. I know not everybody's going to be here tomorrow for our raku and horsehair firing, but I'm still going to give you all the information because people who aren't here tomorrow, and this is for you folks at home too, if you're not coming to help with the firing tomorrow, you're going to have a quiz on this information that I'm presenting to you today, because the information today is going to be all about raku and what it is and how to do it. So please listen in. You do not have to take notes, just listen in. All right, so actually before we talk about raku, I'm going to talk about horsehair, and this is the only thing that I'm going to show you about horsehair. I'll talk more about it to the people who are in person here tomorrow. So I'm going to show you a quick little video on what the horsehair is like to do it, to actually participate in it.
Go directly on top of it. And what I'll do is have somebody over here hand me hair when I'm ready to go.
So we're going to have at least 2 kilns firing tomorrow. One just for horsehair pots, because they get fired to a slightly lower temperature, and then one for the raku pots.
Now there was wax on this pot, so you're going to see the shadows of the wax. A little different with this pot and a different technique.
He's throwing sugar at it right now, and that makes black spots.
You know, a little is a lot. I do need. Yes, I know. I've got them ready.
Now he's doing horsehair.
Now, if it's too hot, it will burn off. It'll burn and then go white. So, looks like we have about the right temperature. Now, when I approach this with a hair, I don't pull it tight like a string on a guitar. You've got to relax or it'll just break. And if it's getting too cool, you paint it on with the flame.
I have several of those little handheld flamethrower thingies, so we'll be able to use those.
Yeah, this is another one of these now. A little is a lot with this hair. Don't grab the whole handful. I'm going to set this over here. We can have 4 people.
So that process, we're going to have probably about maybe 3 or 4 or 5 pots per firing. So there's going to be 4 or 5 people all doing the horsehair at around the same time. And so those of you who don't have a pot in that particular firing, so you don't have anything to throw horsehair on, you're going to be the ones that help the people who are doing the decorating of their pots by handing them the horsehair, handing them the sugar, handing them whatever they need, doing the blowtorch for them, warm up their pots. So it's going to be a team effort. And if there are extra porcelain pots of the people who aren't here, if we have time to fire and horsehair those, then you'll be called upon to help decorate those people's pots, and whatever they get, they get. So that's horsehair. The process is pretty straightforward. I'll give you all the slides and show you more tomorrow. Now, these are the terms that you're going to hear me using tomorrow, and these are terms that are going to be part of the quiz tomorrow if you are not going to be there in person. So raku firing, we've talked about. You know it's an outdoor quick firing process. Grog, you know, that's the tiny little rocks in the clay that make it strong. These next terms are ones that have to do with firing, so these might be more useful. Oxidation means firing a kiln with oxygen flowing freely into the kiln. So all our electric kilns back there are oxidation. Even the raku kiln outside will be oxidation. There'll be air freely flowing in and out. In fact, it needs air to be able to fire. And so when we pull the pots out of that oxidation kiln, there's going to be nothing special about them. They're going to look pretty blah. They'll probably look green. Nothing too special. What happens that makes raku special is the reduction. The reduction is the most important part of raku. So when we take the tongs, I have some brand new raku tongs here. So when we use these tongs to pull the pots out of the kiln, we're going to put them into a garbage can, a metal garbage can, full of stuff that burns. It might be sawdust, it might be newspaper, it depends on what I can get my hands on. And then as soon as that fire starts burning, because the hot pot has touched the burnable material, as soon as that fire starts burning, we're going to slam that lid on tight and create reduction. So all the oxygen is going to get burned up by the fire inside that can, and it's not going to be able to get any further oxygen because the can is going to be sealed. And so then copper starts to come out of the glaze and come to the surface of the glaze, and that's where it turns all rainbowy, metallic-y, coppery, bright, shiny, unpredictable colors. So when your pot comes out in oxidation, again, it's going to be kind of boring. After it goes in reduction and sits in there for about 10 minutes, that's when it's going to come out all bright and shiny. Okay, so there's two very different components happening there, and the reduction is what makes it super, super special. Thermal shock is what your pot is going to go through. So when it comes out of the kiln, it's going from 1800 degrees inside that kiln to 55 degrees or whatever it's going to be outside tomorrow. So it's an enormous thermal shock on the clay. There is a chance that things might crack. There is a chance that things might break. We'll be as careful as we can to prevent that from happening. But because it is such a rough process, stuff could crack. It does happen, and I just wanted to warn you about that. Your last two terms have to do with the two kinds of glaze that I have for you today. Copper flashing glazes are glazes where copper oxides are in the glaze and they come to the surface during reduction. So the copper flashing glazes are the ones that are going to go all coppery and metallic-y and rainbow, okay? And I'll show you, I have two flashing glazes, and I'll show you those in a little bit. The other type of glaze that I have for you are crazing glazes. Crazing means crackle. So I have two crackle glazes. One is a clear crackle, which really means that it's white because the clay is white, and it's going to get little black cracks in it. The other is a turquoise crackle, and that's a turquoise base, and it's going to get little black crackles in it. So I'll talk more about the flashing and the crazing when I bring you over there and show you the different glazes that I have. But basically, here's the difference. Flashing glazes, unpredictable metallic rainbow. Crackle glazes, unpredictable black cracks. Okay, neither which are food safe, but it doesn't matter because we made sculptures which are not meant to be food safe anyway. So just a really brief history why we do raku and why it is the way it is. It's actually an ancient Japanese form of firing, but when they do raku, it doesn't look anything like what we're going to do. We do the Western style of raku. Their type of firing is done in a kiln. The pot sits in the kiln the whole time, and it doesn't get pulled out like we do. We do a Western style of raku that was invented by Paul Soldner, a very wild hippie guy. He was one of the professors at the University of California, Berkeley in the 70s, part of a really strong hippie movement in California. He would oftentimes walk around naked. He would raku fire naked. Very dangerous, by the way. And so he was throwing a wild party at his house one night in California, and he was firing outside. So as part of the party, part of the entertainment of the party was he was doing a firing in this little portable kiln. And in a fit of craziness, he opened up the kiln, grabbed a pot, and threw it in his koi pond in his backyard. And when the pot was cool enough to pull out of his koi pond, I don't know if fish survived the process, but when the pot came out of the koi pond, he found that all sorts of really crazy rainbow metallic-y things had happened to this clay. And no one had ever tried that before. And so he was kind of the godfather of this process of firing quick, pulling the pots out, and crash cooling them. So we raku fire because of this crazy hippie, Paul Soldner. So this is kind of what our process is going to look like tomorrow. In fact, that's really similar to what our kiln is going to look like, and just propane tanks, just like that. So when it comes to
today, load this kiln up. Another one will basically heat the pieces up to it's called combination, 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. Lift the kiln cage off, and people with tongs grab the pieces and transfer them over here to a barrel. They go into a barrel with combustibles, the lid's put on, and it's deprived of oxygen. that atmosphere creates these really dynamic glaze effects that you can't get any other way. Glazes crackle, they go like a copper penny. It's a very different type of firing that was invented in Japan centuries ago.
So tomorrow, if you're part of a shift. Oh yeah, hear the glaze crackle. Tomorrow, if you're part of a shift and helping with the raccoon firing.
The clay itself, I felt was easier to work with than the regular clay that we were working with during the semester. And I mean, just for my pieces, I just did a bowl and then something just for show all the way down the end. And it's pretty cool to see the different finishes, the different places, and what it does. Even the same glaze on a different piece, whether it's thinner or thicker, where it was, I think, in the kiln, it's obviously showing up differently on all these pieces. So I think it's pretty amazing.
So when you're here tomorrow, there's different sorts of jobs to be done. And so if you don't feel comfortable with the tongs lifting the pots out of the kiln, you're not going to have to do it. I'm only going to ask people who are comfortable to do it. And maybe you want to watch it done a couple of times before you actually try doing it yourself. That's totally okay. The first time I raku fired, I was so nervous. I was seriously really scared to get close to the heat. I was really scared about dropping somebody's pot with the tongs. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's fine. There are other jobs to be done. Like you could be the person standing back by the metal canister, and once the pot goes into the canister, you could be the person that throws more sawdust on top of it or throws more newspaper on top of it. So there's lots of different jobs, and I'll only ask you to do whatever you feel comfortable doing. So things to know for tomorrow. This is really important if you're going to be here. The weather's supposed to be really nice. It's supposed to be sunny and in the mid-50s. So that's a really positive thing. Regardless of the weather, I want you to wear old pants. I want you to wear old tennis shoes. Please, nothing that has your toes open, like no sandals or Tevas or anything like that. So old tennis shoes and a long sleeved shirt. And that's because the kiln does get pretty hot, and I just want you to protect your arm hair so you don't get burnt or anything like that. So just any old pants, any old tennis shoes, any old long sleeve shirt. And when you're not on, like when it's not your shift to pull pots or whatever, you can just like take off your long shirt, or if you have shorts underneath, take your pants off, it's fine. But when it's go time, I want your body to be protected, please. Other things you should bring, it's going to be warm outside and it's going to be warm next to the kiln, so I would bring a water bottle, please, to have with you throughout the day. We will have access to the school, but I'm not going to have people like running all around throughout the school. Like you can go to the bathroom, you can fill up your water bottle if you need to, but like you can't run to the vending machines or things like that. So just bring whatever you think you might need to eat or drink. And also, if you want, I have 2 little pop-up tents that we can put outside, like an easy up tent that just has the roof part, so we'll put those up to block from the sun. I have some picnic blankets we can throw down to sit on, but if you want to bring a camp chair, that's up to you. Please be on time. If you don't know what shift you signed up for, you can go to the Sign Up Genius, or I also have your name written here for each, for all the people that are signed up for each shift. So if you want to see who has signed up for what, it's written right here. So please be on time. And if you signed up for the 11 to 1 shift, usually we order pizza on our raccoon days. And so if you want to participate in ordering pizza, bring $5 to contribute to ordering a pizza, and we'll order from wherever people want to order from. So those are some things to be aware of for tomorrow. I'm going to talk about glazing here in a sec. So your first order of business for today, if you have a raccoon sculpture that you fired, that has to be glazed first. Okay, so we need to make sure that that is done. The bottom is wiped. We have to make sure no glaze is on the bottom so it doesn't stick in the firing. And then, I said I was going to use Post-its. Where do I have my Post-its? I guess these will do. So after you have glazed and wiped the bottom of your sculpture, this cart is where we're going to put the pieces to be fired. And so write your name on one of these little yellow sheets and write what glazes you used, because the firing tends to work better if all the same type of glaze are in the kiln at the same time. So just keep a note. Maybe actually take one of these now. Put your name on it now. Again, this is only if you're glazing raccoon today. And then as you use the glazes that are over here, just write down the glazes you used. And then leave this little yellow sheet of paper with your sculpture on that card. When you're done glazing, and it probably won't take you very long to glaze today, make sure you wipe the bottom, put it on the cart, and then go back to working on your set of cups for today. So I'm gonna leave this on the screen, and I'm gonna bring everybody over to table 1. So come on over to table 1. I'm gonna show you the glazes that I have for you. People who are at home, I'm bringing you with me. All right, so this is my raku sculpture, and even though I know I joined everything really well, I still have to be really delicate and careful with it. Obviously, this could be a fragile thing, so I'm going to be as cautious as I can. So I'm going to dip glaze this in a moment. You don't have to dip glaze, but I'm just going to choose to because it's quick and it's pretty easy. So I'm going to show you the kind of glazes that we have. I'm going to dip glaze this. I'm going to wipe the bottom, and then you're going to be able to do the same. So the 2 glazes that I have here are the flashing glazes. These are the ones that turn all coppery and metallic-y unpredictably. Now I did a test pot of each one. So this is one called Mystery Beat, and this is one called Copper Penny or Metallic Flash. Now you can see there's nothing super special about this right now. It's just green. This one's just green as well. That's because the specialness happens in reduction, and I wasn't able to do reduction in the kiln that we have here. So I'm going to also fire these in our kiln tomorrow outside so I can actually get a test tile of what it really will look like. But this is the base color. It doesn't really have anything to do with how it's going to end up. The other 2 glazes that I have over here are the Crackle Glazes. This one is Clear Crackle. So you can see it's going to look like this, but in reality, after the Raccoon Firing, it's going to have black cracks in it. And incidentally, anything that has no glaze on it, if you leave any areas blank, that's going to be black because the carbon of the smoke is going to go into those unglazed areas. And that's why the cracks get black, is because carbon goes into those cracks. And then the other one that I have is Turquoise Crackle. So I actually added a little bit of clear to that to make it a little shinier because this is kind of more matte, which is fine. But I thought it would be nice if it had a little bit more shine to it. So this is the base of the Clear Crackle. Again, when it's Raccoon fired, there'll actually be black cracks in it. So I have my sculpture here, and I actually painted my birds red first because Raccoon firing, even when we go outside, it's a low firing technique. So I can actually use the glazes that are over there, the low fire glazes that you paint on. So if you have an area that you want to be purple, you can use the purple glaze. Or if you have an area you want to be pink, you can use the pink glaze. And then also use one of the glazes that we have over here so something special happens. With those glazes, nothing special really happens. It's just red or green or blue or whatever. So you definitely want to make sure you're also using one of the Raccoon glazes. And so I painted my birds red, and then I'm just going to dip the rest of it in Clear Crackle. So I'll see the birds, they'll show through the clear, and everything else will have the black cracks. So I'm going to bring this over here so the people who are at home can see me do this. Otherwise, I'm going to ask that you leave it over here. So I'm just going to pick it up, and I don't know if this is big enough for me to dip in one dip. I kind of hope it is. Oh, sweet day in the morning, it is. That's awesome. So one quick dip. Don't let it sit in there for a long period of time. The more time the glaze has to absorb into the clay, the thicker it's going to be and the more likely it is to run. So as quick of a dip as you can, let it drip. And then when it is dry enough for you to pick it up, lay it down on your towel so it's cushioned, flip it upside down, lay it on its towel, and then grab a wet sponge and just wipe off the bottom really well so there's no glaze on the bottom. That's going to be really important because it's going to be hard to pull your pot out of the kiln if your pot is stuck in the kiln because there was glaze on the bottom. So then I would write my name, I would write Clear Crackle on a slip of paper, and I would put it over on that card. Okay. So I am going to push this to the side here. I'm going to take my computer with me. Do you in-person people have any questions on that process? Okay, Great. So then glaze your raku thing first. Oh, sorry, I should have said, if you want to paint it on, if you want to control where the color goes, you can totally do that. That's fine. You would just paint 3 layers to have it be the same as dipping it once. Okay. All right, that's it. Go to it. I'm going to check in with my people at home. Yeah. Yeah, what's up?
The bottom of my base crack,
Okay.
like 3 places. Is there a way to like fix that or no?
No.
I'm not too worried about it because I have a lot of support on it.
Let me take a look. Can you hold it up for me?
It's not.
Oh, I think it's going to be fine.
I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be fine,
Yep.
so-
The glaze is going to fill those in, actually. Derek, would you flip on the lights, please? Thank you. All right, I'm going to stop recording.